I grew up with Dylan as childhood sweethearts, and for the first 20 years, we were innocent and carefree with each other. It wasn't just me. Even our parents and the friends around us thought that we were a perfect match made in heaven. At the age of 18, my parents brought up the matter of an arranged marriage with the Elton family and asked for my opinion. In fact, I had a crush on Dylan. If the marriage between our two families could be realized, it would also be a beautiful story. Since we were too young, the matter of our engagement was put on hold, and we went to the same university. During these 2 years of getting along, our relationship was more than just friendship but not yet love. People around us all thought that it was just a matter of time for us, and I also allowed my feelings for Dylan to gradually deepen. Until the winter of my sophomore year, Dylan excitedly told me, "Rebecca, I've fallen for a girl." It wasn't me. He was so happy, and it turned out that in the past 20 years, he hadn't developed romantic feelings for me. Those hand-holding and hugs, in Dylan's view, were just what good friends did. Feelings can't be forced, and I couldn't belittle myself either. So I took back my heart. Thus, in the surprised eyes of those around us, Dylan started dating a girl from an ordinary well-off family. That girl was pretty and had a bit of a spoiled temper. At first glance, she was a child who had been doted on by her parents. He introduced his girlfriend to all the friends in the circle. My existence seemed a bit awkward then, but our mutual friends didn't think highly of their relationship. They always believed that once Dylan's freshness wore off, he would realize that he and I were the well-matched couple. Someone comforted me. "Rebecca, Dylan is just having a fling. He's never met such a naive and innocent girl before, and he'll get bored of her after a while." That wasn't the case, though. Dylan dated this girl for 2 years. In these 2 years, he swaggered around with his girlfriend, and not only me, but also my parents and his parents heard about it. My dad was so angry that he wanted to go to their house and scold them. My mom persuaded him, "If we don't form an alliance through marriage, that's okay. Why make things worse? Is there any need for our daughter to worry about not finding a good match? Is this just about not getting married?" My dad was still angry. When the two families discussed the marriage before, Dylan couldn't have been unaware of it, and he was already an adult. At the very least, he had a tacit attitude. Even though I had never been in a serious relationship with him, we were indeed on the verge of getting engaged at that time. It was my mom who said that we were too young and that we should get along for a while longer. In terms of social etiquette, he had embarrassed me and my family. However, I was still friends with him. Since our two families had business cooperation, we had to maintain a good relationship on the surface. But we could only be friends now. What happened tonight was Dylan's birthday. He booked a large private room and invited a lot of people to come and have fun. I was among them. Of course, his girlfriend Megan was also there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. After Dylan started dating, I had less contact with him, but there were still some lingering issues from the past. Before Dylan met Megan, our chat records and interactions on social media couldn't be considered innocent. After he started dating, his girlfriend naturally had the right to check his phone. There were several quarrels because of this. Once, Dylan apologized to me, and that's when I found out that Megan had used his phone to delete my contact information. I hadn't been in touch with him for a while at that time, and I didn't notice this at all. Since Megan wanted to integrate into Dylan's circle, it was inevitable that she would hear about me. The young masters and ladies who grew up together were somewhat exclusive, and someone must have said something to her. I understood the situation and distanced myself from Dylan. For his birthday, I originally planned to drop off the gift and leave, but when I entered and my gaze swept past a certain figure, I was stunned for a moment. Then my phone lit up. After reading the message, I silently found a seat and sat down. "Rebecca, you're here." Dylan looked a bit surprised. "I heard that you've been learning from your dad recently, and I thought you wouldn't have time." I smiled and handed him the birthday gift, saying, "Happy birthday, Sister Rebecca." Megan's voice rang out. "I haven't seen you for a long time. Why are you going for a mature style these days? You look almost like you're in your 30s. Megan was wearing a pink evening gown custom-made for hundreds of thousands of yuan, and she had curled her hair, looking particularly playful. She certainly wasn't lacking in emotional intelligence. I lowered my eyes and looked at the lady's suit I was wearing, chuckling. "Is that so? Then it seems that I have the style of a female entrepreneur. Dylan tried to smooth things over. Rebecca. Megan was just joking. Don't take it to heart. Of course. I didn't take it to heart. Not everyone can stay in my heart. The seat I was sitting in wasn't close to them, but my eyesight and hearing were still good. Megan probably came across a new meme online and suddenly said to Dylan, "Dylan, you're 1 year older than me. Why didn't you come to see me on the day I was born? Don't you love me?" After she said this, not only did Dylan laugh, but the people beside them also laughed and started teasing him, saying, "Yeah, Dylan, why didn't you bring milk powder to see your girlfriend back then?" This teasing was meant in good faith. Megan was pretty, the kind of pure and innocent beauty. Her personality was actually quite nice too. After dating Dylan for 2 years, she also had some connections with some people, so she wasn't lacking in emotional intelligence. Dylan casually replied, "I was at home then, not drinking milk properly and getting beaten by my mom." There was another burst of laughter beside them. Dylan turned his head and saw that his uncle, who rarely came to celebrate with him, was still there, so he asked with a playful smile, "Uncle, if it were you, how would you answer?" Dylan's uncle, Cyrus, was 5 years older than us. He was a child born to the Elton family's parents by accident. He had always been the perfect child in other people's families. Although he was only a few years older, his seniority was there. Moreover, Cyrus's resume was so outstanding that the second-generation rich kids in the circle were quite afraid of him. I used to call him Uncle too. Dylan probably just wanted to see what kind of thought process his uncle, who was calm and a bit old-fashioned, would have. Someone beside them laughed. "Dylan, you're putting your uncle on the spot. He's so busy with important affairs every day. When would he have time to fall in love?" The next second, Cyrus spoke up. "I went to see her." "Oh." The man who usually didn't smile added softly, "Not only did I go to see her, but I also held her when she was a child." No one noticed that his gaze was fixed directly on me, but the others were tickled by his answer. "Ha ha 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 ha. Uncle, I didn't expect you to be so good at playing along with the meme." No one took it seriously, except me. Cyrus's gaze didn't move away, even though I wasn't looking at him directly. I felt that his gaze was a bit too obvious. After it was over, I found my car in the parking lot. When I got in the car, I realized that someone was already inside. The driver in the front hesitated to speak. Cyrus's chuckling voice came, "Would you mind giving me a ride? I didn't drive tonight." The car door closed, and I heard the person beside me say again, "I can't remember the way home. Rebecca, would you mind letting me stay at your place for the night?" Cyrus pretended to be drunk and leaned on my shoulder. His warm breath occasionally landed on the skin of my neck, making his presence very noticeable. I looked out the window and thought of the night when Dylan announced his relationship on Instagram 2 years ago. It was a lie to say that I wasn't sad. Less than a month after Dylan told me that he had met the girl he liked, he made the relationship public. At that time, I was still thinking about how the relationship between our two families should end. What caught me even more off guard was that at the same time, he took his girlfriend to meet our mutual friends. Maybe Dylan just wanted to show his love for his girlfriend. But there were always people in the circle who disliked me. During that period, some sarcastic remarks naturally came my way, whether I showed that I cared or not. I couldn't avoid being mocked. That's when Cyrus came back from abroad. He seemed to be following up on a project in New York at that time, and it wasn't finished yet. I didn't want to see anyone from the Elton family at all during those days. But Cyrus just appeared in front of me so bluntly. It was during the winter vacation. Cyrus asked me if I wanted to go to the United States with him to relax. I was stunned and didn't understand what he meant. For a long time, Dylan and I were a bit afraid of his uncle, although he was only 5 years older. Since I could remember, Cyrus clearly couldn't play with us naive children, favored by genetics. Cyrus was so excellent that there was nothing to say against him, and as we grew older, he gradually became someone to be looked up to. His courage and handsome appearance, which were obviously better than those of his peers, attracted many girls who liked him. I didn't talk to him very often. Most of the time, even if we had contact, it was because of Dylan. So when he invited me to go to the United States with him, I didn't understand. Cyrus asked me, "Do you still like Dylan?" I was silent for a moment and didn't know how to answer his question. "It's okay if you still like him. He's just a man," Cyrus said. There will be more men in your life than just him. I wasn't sure if he was comforting me for a while. Dylan likes someone else. Have you considered liking someone else? Cyrus looked at me with a very calm tone and said, "Have you considered me?" Shock overwhelmed my senses more directly than sadness. The tears that had been in my eyes now welled up and fell. But my eyes were filled with stunned silence. Cyrus gently wiped my cheek with a tissue, wiping away that tear. "Don't shed tears for someone who isn't worth it," he said, pausing for a moment, and then slowly added, "Of course, you can think of it as detoxifying your body." It was the first time I knew that Cyrus had such a sense of humor. He said, "If the original reason you chose Dylan was to consider the marriage alliance between our two families, then my overall conditions should be better than his." It was far more than just a little better. Cyrus was almost certain to be the next person in charge of the Elton family. Dylan didn't have that ambition, and his scheming was far less than that of his uncle. If you just simply like Dylan as a person, and he has withdrawn from the journey of winning your heart, I don't think it's immoral for me to pursue you. I went to New York with Cyrus to relax, not because I was moved by his words but because he asked, "Do you plan to join your family's company after graduation? I'm negotiating a project in New York. Do you want to come and take a look?" Cyrus's ability was obvious to all. At that time, like many others, I admired him. It's normal to admire the capable. I really wanted to see Cyrus at work, so even when he volunteered to be my potential marriage partner, I still went to New York with him. Cyrus kept me by his side for 2 weeks, and there was no such ambiguous atmosphere between adults. He taught me a lot of things, like a senior taking care of a junior. I witnessed his resourcefulness and composure at work, without considering any personal feelings. Choosing Cyrus was much better than choosing Dylan. The benefits were more straightforward. "But, Uncle, Dylan is your nephew." The night before leaving New York, in the cozy bar inside the hotel, Cyrus and I sat facing each other, with soothing English songs playing in the background. The lights in the bar were dim and yellow, adding a touch of ambiguity. Cyrus's expression didn't change. His calm eyes landed on my face, and he looked into my eyes. Yes, he didn't act in a proper way. "You can consider becoming his aunt. Then you'll be his elder in the future. Become Dylan's aunt." I admit that Cyrus's words were somewhat tempting, but I had other considerations for my life. Dylan had hurt me, but he couldn't affect the next step of my life. "Uncle, I have another question." "Cyrus, you can ask many questions. Also, you can just call me by my name." Calling him by his name directly. I had been calling him uncle since I was a child, following Dylan's lead, and naturally regarded him as an elder. But now, our relationship was developing in a different direction, adding a bit of a sense of moral transgression. "What do you think of me?" I paused for a moment. "What's your opinion of me? Do you want to ask if I'm pursuing you for the sake of benefits or something else?" Cyrus asked me in return, but before I could answer, he said, "Rebecca, the age difference of 5 years shouldn't be too big. Besides Dylan, I can also be considered your childhood sweetheart." "Right." I was taken aback. "I'm a few years older than you. After you started going to kindergarten, you often came to play with Dylan. At that time, the adults at home were busy, and you and Dylan were both very attached to me. Do you remember?" Cyrus said softly. His words brought back my memories. It seemed that children always liked to play with older kids, and both Dylan and I used to cling to Cyrus when we were young. But as we grew older, Cyrus was busy with his studies and later with his career. He became an outstanding person among his peers, and naturally, our relationship changed. When you graduated from high school, my elder brother and sister-in-law hoped that you could become their daughter-in-law and discussed the matter of engagement with your parents. At that time, you and Dylan were innocent and carefree. Cyrus changed the topic. "But Rebecca, now he's the one who withdrew first. Even though I'm his elder, it's not immoral for me to pursue a single girl, is it?" Cyrus sent me home. During the half-month in New York, he didn't cross the line at all. During the spring festival that year, Dylan and his parents probably didn't have the face to come to my home to pay New Year's calls because of his relationship. The Elton family sent Cyrus over. There were a lot of people that day. No one knew that in my boudoir. Cyrus asked me, "Rebecca, what have you decided?" "Cyrus, did you really come to see me on the day I was born?" When we got back to my place, I suddenly remembered this and asked casually. At this moment, he was burying his face in my neck. sniffing gently, and his delicate kisses landed on my skin. He chuckled, and his warm breath reached me. Did you think I was joking with them? At that time, Dylan was only 2 months old. My eldest brother was busy, and my sister-in-law was still resting at home. My parents took me to the hospital to see you, he said, and then slowly added. Of course, I was the only one who came to see you specifically. My parents came more out of social etiquette. As for whether I held you when you were a child, you remember that yourself, right? When Dylan and I were most attached to his uncle, I always ran to Cyrus and asked him to hug me. It's just that the relationship between people always changes as they grow older. When we were a few years old, Dylan and I were clingy to Cyrus. After starting school, we gradually drifted apart. Later, I regarded him as an elder. And now, we were kissing in the dead of night. During the spring festival that year, Cyrus didn't get my nod of approval, but he understood my tacit consent and started pursuing me right under the noses of many people. Since Dylan fell for someone else, his place in my heart gradually changed. Feelings are two-way. It's impossible for me to be deeply in love with a man who has a girlfriend. And it was also difficult to refuse Cyrus, who clearly knew when to advance and when to retreat. The empty space in my heart was filled by another person. During the summer vacation the year before last, Cyrus and I officially established our relationship. At that time, it was about half a year after Dylan started dating. He and his girlfriend organized a trip and invited me, but I refused. As a result, there were some misunderstandings. Megan and some of our mutual friends mistakenly thought that I refused because I hadn't let go of Dylan. But at that time, I had no reason to leave my boyfriend and accept their invitation. We didn't tell many people about my relationship with Cyrus. Like other couples, from holding hands and hugging to kissing and getting more intimately involved, everything happened naturally. Before tonight, we hadn't seen each other for more than 10 days. Cyrus had been on a business trip for a while. I sat on his lap and kissed him, pouring my deep yearning into the kiss. But Cyrus's hands were not honest. They ignited the fire everywhere, making me feel intoxicated. The night was thick. In the vase placed on the coffee table in my living room, there were fresh pink campanula flowers. For some reason, a gust of wind blew, and the delicate flowers trembled again and again. As I was approaching graduation, my focus was all on my family's company. My dad had always hoped that I could take on responsibilities independently as soon as possible. He had let me get involved in the family business last year. During these days, apart from my graduation thesis, I devoted all my time to work. After a wild night, my biological clock rang on time. When I opened my eyes and remembered what happened, the hand around my waist pulled me back with a strong tug. Why get up so early? Cyrus's voice also sounded like he had just woken up. Sleep a little longer. I have to go to work. Mr. Cyrus, I coaxed him in a low voice. There's a very important project recently. Don't be naughty. Cyrus chuckled. Shall I take a look at it for you? No. It involves company secrets. Even as my boyfriend, you can't do that. I refused him with righteous words. After being with Cyrus, he had indeed taught me a lot of things. But this was the first project that my dad had entrusted to me to complete independently. And I couldn't slack off. Cyrus just sat on the bed and watched me get up, wash up, turn on the lights, and put on makeup. I told him to sleep a little longer. But soon he got up too. By the time I finished my makeup and the outfit for going out today, Cyrus had already prepared breakfast in the kitchen. He was very skillful, in all aspects, even though the morning time was not enough. The breakfast he made still looked amazing. Sometimes I was curious why Cyrus liked me. It wasn't that I felt unworthy of him, but Cyrus had a wide range of choices. There were even quite a few girls who had actively pursued him before. Cyrus glanced at me and said indifferently, maybe it's the same reason why you only had eyes for Dylan before. I can only see you. And it's the same now. He still cared a bit about his nephew. There was a faint smell of jealousy in the air. It wasn't difficult to fall in love with Cyrus, just as I had always known. Feelings are two-way. Before going out, I didn't forget to give him a kiss. Cyrus said, I don't have much to do recently, so I'll stay at your place. In fact, at first, he had a guest room at my place. On a rainy night last year when he came to take care of me when I had a fever, his personal belongings gradually increased. And then one night, I suddenly really wanted to sleep in his arms. So Cyrus had been sleeping in my bed ever since. I had been very busy during this period, not to mention dating. Even when there were things to deal with at school, I could only squeeze in some time. My dates with Cyrus could only take place in bed. Fortunately, he didn't have any objections. By the time I finally completed this project, it was already June, and I graduated successfully. My dad didn't plan to let me start from the bottom. He wanted to train me as his successor and needed more opportunities to exercise me. The old lady of the Elton family was celebrating her birthday, and I went with my parents. Even though things had been a bit unpleasant in the past 2 years, the friendship between our two families hadn't been broken. We just tacitly pretended that nothing had happened, as if there had never been any discussion about the marriage between me and Dylan. There were a lot of people that night. I followed my parents to say some nice congratulatory words to the old lady. When I called her Grandma Elton, I was actually a bit hesitant, even though I had been calling her that since I was a child. Considering my relationship with Cyrus now, it didn't seem appropriate for me to call her that anymore. Cyrus came over. He was wearing a burgundy shirt, and it was rare that he didn't button it up tightly. 2 buttons were undone. He had just gotten out of my bed this morning. There were marks on his body from last night under his clothes, and I was the same. The moment our eyes met, he seemed to smile at me. That trace of debauchery revealed by this somewhat old-fashioned and serious man was really captivating. Cyrus and I still pretended not to be familiar with each other in public, so I called him Uncle. In fact, I had been calling him by his name privately for a long time. He was my boyfriend, and this word, Uncle, only occasionally rang out in bed. At this moment, it was a bit like flirting in public. He nodded, with a poker face, and replied to me, Rebecca. Such a fake serious person. The banquet was really lively, but I was so familiar with the people of the Elton family that I easily noticed something was wrong. There was a bit of a low atmosphere in their family, so I sent a message to Cyrus asking what was going on. He replied, Dylan wanted to bring his girlfriend, but he got scolded. The more detailed content should be that Dylan wanted to bring his girlfriend to meet his parents, and his parents were originally dissatisfied with his girlfriend. When they saw that he had the intention of getting married, they opposed it even more. So today, Megan didn't show up. Dylan's parents looked at me with regret and said some words that mixed sincerity and social etiquette. I responded very decently. Cyrus, whether intentionally or not, also joined in. Cyrus, you're not a young man anymore. The old lady, as the birthday celebrant, suddenly said, There are so many girls. Isn't there any you like? What the old lady meant was that many girls present tonight were well matched and suitable, and there were even several whom she favored as potential daughters-in-law. Cyrus didn't seem to be as resistant to his elderly mother's urging for marriage as he used to be. He chuckled. Mom, I have a girlfriend. Is that true? These words happened to be heard by Dylan, who was passing by. He gossiped. Uncle, do I have an aunt? Which girl is she? Do I know her? I glared at Cyrus subtly, facing Dylan's question and the gazes of his parents and eldest brother and sister-in-law. He replied to his nephew, Take care of yourself first. Dylan, since you're in a relationship, you should bring the girl home, said Cyrus's eldest brother. Next to him, Dylan was angry but didn't dare to speak out. His father wouldn't let him bring his girlfriend to the old lady's birthday banquet, but he was urging his uncle to bring someone home. Cyrus, she's here tonight. The Elton family members were shocked and immediately started looking around the venue, searching for the possible candidate. I was also startled, not knowing what Cyrus was up to. Cyrus, who is your girlfriend? Cyrus's sister-in-law asked. Most of the guests present tonight had some connections, which at least showed that Cyrus's girlfriend was from a well-matched family. So at this moment, the attitude of the Elton family members was naturally different. She's young, and there's no need to rush into marriage. Let's talk about it in a couple of years. Cyrus said, Uncle, you can't have a girlfriend who is even younger than me, can you? Dylan said half-jokingly. Cyrus didn't say anything. She's really younger than me. Dylan couldn't believe it. Grandpa Elton finally spoke up at this moment. Cyrus, is that girl an adult? Of course. Cyrus looked at his father a bit puzzled. What kind of person do you take me for? The news that Cyrus had a girlfriend spread that night, thanks to Dylan's big mouth, because Cyrus had given a range, present tonight and younger than Dylan. There were many speculations about the identity of his girlfriend, but no one guessed it was me. Dylan also gossiped with me. Rebecca, have you seen any girl who is close to my uncle? I was silent and then shook my head. I'm not familiar with your uncle. That's true. Dylan easily accepted my statement. You only meet him a few times a year. It's normal not to know. He added, I plan to go on a graduation trip with Megan. Do you want to come? The last time we went out to play was probably when we graduated from high school. I looked at Dylan with a somewhat indescribable expression, but I still maintained my composure. No, I don't have the time. Are you really not coming? Megan specifically asked me to invite you. Then you two are a bit strange. No, I didn't have much time to waste on meaningless things. When I got back in the evening, Cyrus was standing on the balcony wearing that burgundy shirt, holding half a glass of red wine, just watching me enter the door. He looked really good. What are you doing? I crossed my arms and looked at him playfully. I remember you left after me. How did you get here before me? Cyrus readily admitted. I asked the driver to take a shortcut. He walked over, and like me, he had a faint smell of alcohol on him. You kept stealing glances at me tonight. Do you like me in red? So he knew I was looking at him. Can't I look? He chuckled. I came back specially for you to look at me. I took a sip of the red wine in his glass along with his hand. You're raiding my wine cabinet again. Cyrus drank the last sip in his glass and put the glass aside. He said, go to my place tomorrow to choose some wine. Take whatever you like. With the gentle breeze blowing in from the balcony and the tipsy kiss, it was tender and lingering. There were still marks from last night that hadn't faded under Cyrus's burgundy shirt. When he pressed against me, he smiled and asked me, what did you talk about with Dylan tonight? Why are you still thinking about him? I was a bit dissatisfied. Do you want to quarrel? We had been in a relationship for about 2 years. And of course, we had quarreled. But they were all trivial matters. Cyrus was the kind of person who would even sleep in the same bed when we quarreled. So the quarrels never lasted long. He said, my eldest brother and sister-in-law still hope that you can be their daughter-in-law. Can't I be a bit jealous? Then go quarrel with them. I pretended to push him away, but Cyrus pressed against me with all his strength. At a certain moment, he even lifted me directly onto his lap and then let go. My eyes blurred for a moment. No quarreling. They have no chance of having you as a daughter-in-law. Cyrus kissed my lips gently and smiled. You can be their sister-in-law instead. I bit his lip. I haven't said I want to marry you. Cyrus wasn't angry when he heard this. He lowered his head and did his part attentively. Then he looked up into my eyes, his voice slightly hoarse. What should I do then? Rebecca, in 2 or 3 years, I'll be 30. Other girls don't want me, and you don't want your uncle either. This word, uncle, landed in my ear like a taboo spell, and like a poisoned apple. It still exuded a deadly temptation. Cyrus, this bad man. After graduation, I spent all my time on work and life. Cyrus had a house that was closer to my family's company, so he persuaded me to move in. And after I moved in, he also moved in. We were living together. Half a year later, when having afternoon tea with a friend, I heard her mention Dylan. Rebecca, have you heard? Dylan and his girlfriend are probably going to break up soon. I looked at her in confusion. Cyrus hadn't updated me on this gossip. You know how generous Mr. Dylan is when he's in a relationship. That girl wanted to join the Elton family's company after graduation. But now it's his father and uncle who are in charge of the Elton family. His father didn't allow her to take this shortcut, and Megan couldn't get in on her own merits. So Dylan just casually arranged for her to join the company. Hearing this, I didn't see anything wrong with it. Then, why are they going to break up? That girl wants to get married and become a rich lady. You can't not know the attitude of the Elton family. Right. My friend chattered about this and also paid attention to my expression. Seeing that I didn't react, she continued, I don't know what Dylan said to his family, but now his family is very angry and has explicitly said that he can't think about getting married until his uncle gets married. Oh, how did Cyrus get involved in this matter? Of course, that's just an excuse. On the surface, it means that he can only get married after the elder gets married first. But weren't his parents quite eager when they wanted you two to get engaged back then? They probably just want to delay this matter. If he really wants to get married, who can stop him? I chuckled. My friend gave me a thumbs up. You're right. If he really wants to get married, He can do it regardless of everything. But the problem is a guy who is willing to break with his family for a woman. And a girl who is used to being extravagant because her boyfriend spoils her. Willing to give up the chance of becoming a wealthy lady. Older people always see things more profoundly. However, Rebecca, have you really let go of Dylan? My friend propped her chin on her hand and looked at me. Apart from having average taste, his conditions are actually quite good. Many people envy his girlfriend. I smiled. Dylan and I were just good friends who used to play together. In the evening, Cyrus and I were watching a palace intrigue drama on the sofa. Once some dramas start, even a passing dog would be forced to be controlled for 10 minutes. My legs were resting on his legs, and I would play with his fingers from time to time. Just then, Cyrus's phone rang. He glanced at me, answered the call, and put it on speakerphone. "Uncle, please help me." Dylan's voice came from the other end. I pressed the pause button on the TV. "Help you with what?" Cyrus asked back. "My parents are ignoring me now and saying they might as well have never given birth to me as their son." "Then what can I do for you? Do you want to be adopted under my name and recognize me as your father?" Dylan was obviously taken aback. "Uncle, my dad said I can only get married after you get married. So you're here to urge me to get married." Cyrus laughed for some reason, looking up at me while still speaking to his nephew. "Are you sure that girl is the one you really want to marry?" Before Dylan could finish his sentence, his uncle said, "Okay, I'll discuss it with your aunt." After hanging up the phone, Cyrus was still looking at me with a faint smile in his eyes. Suddenly, someone pinched my ankle, and I heard Cyrus ask, "Dear aunt of our future child, what do you think?" I used the remote control to start the TV again, kicked his hand away, and leaned to the side. "Is this a proposal? Who proposes like you?" Cyrus smiled and got up to go back to the room amidst the noise of the TV drama. Not long after, he came out carrying my foot-soaking bucket, which was steaming hot. He knelt down on one knee, grabbed my foot, and put it in. The water temperature was just right. "Rebecca." He maintained the kneeling position on one knee, took out a ring box from somewhere, and opened it in front of me. "Would you like to make me your husband?" Lying in the opened ring box was a crystal-clear pigeon egg blue diamond ring. Later, Cyrus said that he deliberately used the foot-soaking bucket to trap me at that time so that I would be too lazy to get up and run away. What a scheming man. I was willing to marry him, but after accepting the proposal, how to tell both our parents became a problem. Should I tell my parents that I'm about to marry the uncle of my former prospective fiancé? And Cyrus had to tell his parents, elder brother, and sister-in-law that he was going to marry the granddaughter-in-law and daughter-in-law they once fancied. It's a bit strange. The seniority was going to be messed up. However, before that day came, one night, in a daze, my phone rang. I reached out and fumbled on the bedside table next to me. The light from the phone screen was too blinding, and I answered the call without even looking at the caller ID. "Hello, Rebecca. Why are you so persistent? You clearly have everything. You're a high and mighty young lady. Why do you have to meddle in my relationship with Dylan? Don't think I don't know that Dylan's parents like you. Are you waiting for me to break up with him so you can marry him? Why are you so cheap to seduce someone else's boyfriend?" Before I could react, the hysterical voice came from the other end. It was Megan. I squinted my eyes and saw that the caller ID was Dylan. The next second, Dylan's voice also came through. "Megan, what are you going crazy for? What does it have to do with her? Give me the phone back now." Next came some sounds of pushing and shoving and a quarrel between a man and a woman. Dylan seemed to have gotten the phone back, and he said, "Rebecca, I'm sorry. Megan, Cyrus next to me was woken up and asked sleepily, "Who's calling you so late?" The other end of the phone suddenly went silent. Dylan asked, "Rebecca, is there someone next to you?" Cyrus leaned closer and rubbed against my back. His nephew obviously didn't recognize his voice. "What's wrong?" I asked back. "Who is it?" "My boyfriend." My single persona outside probably went deep into people's hearts. Dylan was probably very surprised. "When did you start dating?" "It's been a long time." I was quite sleepy and had no intention of meddling in their couple's business. "If there's nothing else, I'll hang up." I put the phone away and lay back down. Cyrus hugged me from behind and suddenly said, "I'm your fiancé." What I didn't expect was that Dylan would come to see me. In fact, we hadn't met alone for a long time. We met at a coffee shop downstairs of my company. When Dylan saw me, he was stunned for a moment. Haven't seen you for a long time. It feels like you're becoming a strong businesswoman. You're doing well too. I heard you're learning from your dad now. Dylan gave a bitter smile. My dad doesn't even want to pay attention to me now. I didn't pick up on this topic. Cyrus had privately told me that his elder brother and sister-in-law didn't like their son's girlfriend not just because of her family background. What do you want to talk to me about? I asked. About what happened that night. I want to apologize to you. Because of my problem. You were misunderstood by Megan. She quarreled with me, grabbed my phone, and called to scold you. I'm sorry. Regarding this matter, he really should apologize to me. But Dylan was about to become my nephew. As an elder looking at a younger generation, I'm always more tolerant. I said, it's okay. I didn't take it to heart. Dylan seemed to think for a long time before finally asking the next question. You said you were in a relationship that night. Do I know him? You do. You know him very well. Who is it? Dylan murmured. I thought for a while and said to Dylan, you'll know in a few days. I'll introduce him to you again then. Cyrus and I agreed to directly invite both our parents to meet in a few days and let them socialize on their own. This way, I don't have to waste a lot of words. When I stood up, Dylan suddenly said, your ring. I looked at the diamond ring on my left hand. It was a couple's ring matching Cyrus's. His proposal ring was too ostentatious and inconvenient to wear in daily life. I'm getting married soon, I said to my future nephew. Getting married? How old are you? Are you in such a hurry to get married? Dylan was suddenly stunned. Obviously, being in a relationship and getting married are two different things. And he understood that too. I chuckled. Aren't you the same? I heard about your situation some time ago too. Dylan moved his lips, seemingly not knowing what else to say. After a long while, I heard him say, marriage is not a trivial matter after all. You should think about it carefully. We, as friends, never heard that you were in a relationship before. And we haven't met your boyfriend. Just getting married like this. How can you be sure that he's someone you can rely on? Don't worry. You'll also think that he's someone you can entrust yourself to. I said with certainty. Even now, Dylan still admires his uncle. I expressed my wish to get married to my parents. And they were so shocked that they dropped their chopsticks. Rebecca, when did you start dating? Is it your male classmate or a young person from some other family? Neither. He's probably of the same generation as you. My dad was even more exaggerated. Why are you more unreliable than that kid from the Elton family? You didn't give any hint at all. Let me tell you. Don't bring those messy men home. Afraid that he might miss something. He added. Women are not allowed either. I said it was someone they knew. From a well-matched family. And I wanted to set a time for both our parents to meet. My dad sneered. Fine. I want to see which family raised such a good son. Due to some lingering issues from the past, I left a suspense for my parents and thought it would be better for the adults to talk about it themselves. On the evening of the scheduled meeting, I sent the address to my parents first and went there myself after work. Cyrus also arrived early. His parents, elder brother, and sister-in-law hadn't come yet. Did you tell your family about my identity? I asked him. Cyrus, no. It doesn't matter who you are. He looked very confident. Then why do you keep drinking water? Are you nervous? I exposed him. Cyrus, the consequence of drinking too much water was that before both our parents arrived, he got up and went to the restroom. I didn't know if it was because of nervousness or he really drank too much water. I also walked out of the private room and wanted to discuss with the manager about changing 2 dishes. Unexpectedly, just a few steps out, I met Dylan head-on. He was alone. Rebecca, why are you here? He was a bit surprised when he saw me. I paused. Can't I be here? Of course you can. Dylan touched his nose. It's just that it feels like a coincidence. In fact, it wasn't a coincidence at all. Dylan took the initiative to say, my uncle said he would introduce his girlfriend and her family to us tonight. I came to take a look. Do you want to see who my future little aunt is? Let's go together. Just as I was about to say something, Dylan continued. Also, about what you said before that you plan to get married. I think you should be more cautious. Even if you think he's great, it doesn't mean you should get married. You're still young and can look around more. Dylan, I interrupted him and looked up at him. What right do you have to say these things to me? He was taken aback for a moment. As a friend, You know you're just a friend. When you were in a relationship and thinking about getting married. Did I say a word? I said calmly. Aren't you meddling a bit too much? He probably had a misunderstanding about the boundaries of friendship. How can we be the same? We grew up together. Can't I take a look at your boyfriend? Of course. You can. You'd better take care of your own business first. I said to Dylan. I had heard a lot of gossip about him recently. I was still thinking about finding the manager. Just as I was about to leave, Dylan grabbed my arm from behind. Rebecca. Dylan. At the same time, another voice came from behind Dylan. The person slowly fixed his gaze on my wrist that was being held. What do you want to do to your aunt? Obviously. When my hand was held by Cyrus, Dylan's pupils were still in a state of shock. Uncle. You too. Cyrus didn't care what his nephew was thinking. He turned to me and said, they should be here soon, after asking the staff to change the dishes. When Cyrus and I returned to the private room, almost everyone was already there. But the atmosphere was extremely strange. Later, it was said that the two families thought they had met by chance in this restaurant and had a friendly exchange of greetings at the door. As a result, the waiter led them all to the same private room. Both sides stood at the door of the private room, looking at each other for a long time before speaking to confirm the room number. After confirming that it was correct, my parents, Cyrus's parents, elder brother, and sister-in-law silently went in and found seats to sit down. And when Cyrus and I came in holding hands, all eyes instantly focused on the two of us. Father, mother, elder brother, sister-in-law. Cyrus first greeted his family, then looked at my parents, uncle, aunt. Good evening. I paused, and my parents also paused. You know, before this, Cyrus addressed my parents as elder brother and sister-in-law. Because of the seniority, now he was lowering his own seniority by one generation and raising mine at the same time. So I followed suit and greeted them in the same way. Grandpa and Grandma Elton became uncle and aunt, and their eldest son and daughter-in-law became elder brother and sister-in-law. Let me officially tell everyone that Rebecca and I have been in a relationship for 2.5 years. Just as Cyrus said this, Dylan pushed the door open and entered. So the atmosphere became even more strange. Dylan's gaze landed on me and his uncle. After thinking about something, he looked away and found a seat to sit down. He was so silent that he even forgot the etiquette. The others were still shocked by the fact that Cyrus and I had been in a relationship for so long. 2.5 years. Right under their noses. And no one had noticed. After a while, Cyrus's sister-in-law finally reacted and broke the deadlock. Cyrus, why did you hide the matter between you and Rebecca from us? Rebecca is also a girl we watched grow up. No one would object to you two being together. My parents' social instincts also came back. It's Cyrus. Why are you standing there? Sit down. Everyone. These elders had all come from the world of fame and fortune and had no pressure at all when it came to socializing. At first, my parents were a bit hesitant, but after thinking carefully about Cyrus, it seemed it was okay. So after the dishes were served, everyone at the table was all smiles, except for Dylan, but no one cared about him at the moment. Cyrus said, Rebecca and I didn't mean to hide it from everyone for so long. We planned to tell you all when our relationship was more stable. But later we were delayed by various things. He has always been good at saying polite things. In fact, it was my idea to keep it a secret all this time. But at the moment, Cyrus raised his glass and apologized to my parents. My parents had always admired him, even before they realized that he was going to be their son-in-law. And they weren't angry now. The dinner where we met each other's parents went smoothly overall. After it was over, I helped my parents get into the car. When I went back to find Cyrus, I saw that only he and Dylan were standing together. And it seemed they were arguing about something. Dylan, I heard Cyrus say, you were the one who hoped I would get married soon before. So what are you angry about now? Dylan looked very angry. You didn't say that your marriage partner was Rebecca. You clearly knew. Does it matter who she is? What exactly did I know? Cyrus seemed to chuckle. If you're not used to the girl you grew up with suddenly becoming your aunt, I suggest you try to get used to it now. Cyrus. I called his name. The two men turned to look at me at the same time. Cyrus strode towards me and put his arm around me. Have uncle and aunt gone home? Yes, they have. What were you arguing about with Dylan? It's nothing. He might just not be used to having you as an elder. That night was just about meeting the parents. But after that, the various matters related to our marriage gradually began to be carried out. The news gradually spread among our mutual friends. Cyrus and I don't have too many mutual friends, but we all know each other. He took me to meet his friends, and I also took him to meet mine. Many people were quite confused about our relationship. A friend who has a good relationship with me secretly gave me a thumbs up. "Rebecca, you've managed to win over the uncle of the Elton family. You're so amazing." Well, to be honest, it should be that he won me over. It's so satisfying. I couldn't tell you too much before. Many people privately guessed that you hadn't been in a relationship because you couldn't let go of Dylan. And even his girlfriend thought so. Now you're directly going to be his aunt, and he'll be your nephew in the future. My friend was even happier than me when she talked about it. She said that Cyrus's resume was clearly outstanding, and many families wanted to marry their daughters to him but had no chance. Cyrus had never been involved in any gossip, and he was a high-quality man in the eyes of most people. Of course, these young masters and ladies born with a silver spoon in their mouths are all good potential partners. But there are always differences between people, and Cyrus naturally has his own reasons to stand out. After meeting the parents, my interactions with the Elton family became more frequent. Cyrus's sister-in-law looked at me with a hint of indescribable regret in her eyes. But it didn't really affect our relationship. It's obvious that the marriage between our two families is beneficial. The match between me and Dylan didn't work out back then, but now it's working out with Cyrus, which is also a good thing. My parents belatedly felt happy at home, looking at the various gifts personally sent by their future son-in-law. They genuinely thought that Cyrus was more reliable. My dad couldn't help but reflect. I was wondering what Cyrus was up to when he sent gifts to our house during festivals these past few years. I thought he was representing the Elton family, but I didn't expect he was doing it on his own behalf. The Elton family has been quite lively recently. Apart from the preparation of my and Cyrus's wedding, Megan and her family also came to the Elton house to force a marriage. Yes, it was a marriage coercion in the literal sense. Megan was pregnant. Her parents and brother came to the Elton house and angrily accused the Elton family of having a bad family style and harming their daughter. I happened to be at the Elton house at that time. Cyrus took me back for dinner, and they were uninvited guests. Dylan was very surprised. How is that possible? But the pregnancy test report was there in black and white. Megan was crying pitifully, and her eyes turned to Dylan's parents, uncle and aunt. "I really like Dylan. Please give us your blessing." Her parents used both soft and hard tactics. The mother hugged her daughter and cried, while the father and brother spoke righteously. "Your son got our daughter pregnant. How will she face others in the future? Either get married before her belly gets too big, or we don't care about our reputation and will expose you on the internet." In fact, looking at the various luxury items on this family, it was obvious that during the 3 years Megan was in a relationship with Dylan, they were quite wealthy financially. I also knew something about her family. They were a well-off family, but their income couldn't support such extravagance at all. Even if they weren't short of money, there are still differences among wealthy people, but they probably had some misunderstandings about the wealthy family. Out of courtesy, Dylan's parents invited the family of 4 in. They listened patiently when the family explained the situation and their demands. Finally, their eyes landed on their son, and there was inevitably some disappointment in their eyes. "Dylan," his mother asked, "you're an adult now. How do you plan to deal with this situation?" Dylan was silent for a long time under the gazes of many people. It wasn't until his father said sternly, "Is this how your mother and I taught you to be a coward? If you do something wrong, you have to admit it. You should clean up the mess you made yourself. Do you expect your parents and grandparents to clean it up for you?" "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry." Dylan finally spoke, but it would have been better if he hadn't. "I don't know." Before he could finish this sentence, Megan's father got anxious. "What do you mean? Didn't you say you would marry my daughter?" Dylan's mother still had a calm expression. She looked at her son. "So do you need your parents to step in and make decisions for you now?" Dylan didn't say anything, but it was almost a tacit admission. So his mother made a phone call in public and summoned the family's private doctor team. The Megan's family was on high alert. Her father and brother stood up. "What do you mean? Don't you believe that Megan is pregnant? Or don't you believe that the baby she's carrying is from your Elton family?" Dylan's mother said calmly, "Mr. Megan's father, Your daughter has been in a relationship with my son for several years. Of course, I believe that if she is pregnant, the baby is indeed my son's. But now you've come to our house with a pregnancy test report, leaving aside the issue of whether the baby will be kept or not. I should at least confirm if the baby is healthy. Right. It's just a simple examination. It's your daughter who is pregnant, and the decision of whether to give birth or not is up to her. But if you confirm that the baby is from our family, then of course we will take responsibility for the baby. But Megan looked as if she had been humiliated. With red eyes, she said, "Auntie, even if you don't like me, this baby is Dylan's. How can you humiliate me like this?" Her mother suddenly stood up and grabbed her daughter's hand, ready to leave. "Daughter, look at the kind of person you like. Our family may not be as good as yours, but we're not short of money either. We can raise the baby on our own. Why should we humble ourselves and beg them to marry you?" No one from the Elton family stopped the family of four. A few minutes later, Dylan's mother called and complained about the security guards in the villa area. As for the private doctor who was originally supposed to come, he came as usual and examined Dylan's grandparents, for fear that they might get angry and fall ill because of their grandson. "Rebecca, I'm sorry for making you laugh today," Dylan's mother said to me. "Let Cyrus drive you home." In the car, I asked Cyrus, "Will Dylan get married because of the baby?" Cyrus just stopped at a red light. He said, "No, he won't." "How do you know?" Cyrus turned to look at me and chuckled. "If he really wanted to get married, he wouldn't have let them come to our house with the pregnancy test report to force the marriage. Do you think they were just trying to make my elder brother and sister-in-law accept this daughter-in-law?" I thought about it and clicked my tongue. Then your nephew is really not a good guy. Anyway, after being in a relationship for 3 years, he should give that girl an explanation. Cyrus corrected me. "He's our nephew." But Dylan was shouting about getting married before. "Has he changed his mind now?" Cyrus said indifferently. "How would I know what he's thinking?" When Cyrus and I were busy with the design of the wedding dress and the suit, we heard about the follow-up of Dylan's matter. In the past 3 years, Megan had many of Dylan's friends in her Instagram. She directly announced the news of her pregnancy in the moments and focused on protecting the fetus. To some extent, it was equivalent to trying to force Dylan to get married through public opinion. But there are no absolutely innocent people in this story. The pregnancy was fake, and the so-called true love wasn't completely genuine either. The reason why Megan's family left angrily that day wasn't because they felt humiliated, but because they felt guilty. The sample of her examination report came from her brother's girlfriend. That is to say, someone else was the one who was really pregnant, and Megan's brother, taking advantage of the wealth his sister brought in the past 3 years, got to know many so-called important people, became addicted to gambling, and owed a high amount of debt. He was in urgent need of a long-term and wealthy source of money. Dylan was a very suitable target. Dylan's parents had known about these things for a long time. They knew that it was better to stay away from such in-laws. Whether they were rich or poor, they just wanted to teach their son a lesson. When I turned 23, my birthday celebration was quite grand. Our two families discussed announcing the wedding date on my birthday, which could also be regarded as an engagement. So Cyrus dressed up very handsomely early in the morning. He has a very good relationship with my parents. Sometimes he even comes to my house for a meal very naturally. I wore a pink cheongsam embroidered with a lot of patterns and had my hair up in a bun. The suit Cyrus was wearing had a bit of a new Chinese style, which was specially matched with my outfit. There was a customized silk tree flower brooch pinned to his chest. At that time, I had just won a big project, and everyone praised my parents for having such a good daughter. I stood among the crowd, chatting and laughing while toasting each other. Occasionally, I met Cyrus's eyes, and there seemed to be a hint of gentle pride in his eyes. Gorgeous and radiant, the guests who came and went congratulated Cyrus and me one after another. Dylan also came. He had just broken up and was still listless, as if he wasn't interested in anything, and stayed quietly in a corner by himself. But an accident still happened. Megan somehow followed someone in and caused a commotion in the front hall. I was socializing at that time. When I heard the commotion, Megan had already been taken to the side hall by the security guards and Dylan together. When I rushed there, I heard Megan crying and begging for a reconciliation. My appearance made her emotions flare up. She suddenly pointed at me and said, "Rebecca, you're already going to marry his uncle. Why are you still seducing Dylan?" Dylan frowned. Megan, what are you going crazy for? Our business has nothing to do with others. How can it have nothing to do with her? Megan put away her pitiful look just now and questioned fiercely. When you were in a relationship with me, how many times did you unconsciously mention Rebecca? Do you think I don't know? It was supposed to be you and her getting married. Why are you still thinking about her after you provoked me? When you were drunk, you talked about the interesting things when you were kids. Your friends all said that you two were a perfect match. Do you know how I felt? Dylan took a deep breath. Our breakup was due to problems on both sides. I paid off your brother's gambling debt and gave you a breakup fee. I don't even care about you lying to me. Can't we just break up peacefully? No, I don't want to break up. Megan's tears fell again. Please, Dylan, I won't collude with my family to lie to you anymore. I'll listen to you in everything. Please don't break up with me. Okay. Cyrus and I watched this farce without much thought. Dylan should naturally deal with the trouble he caused. When he came back to the banquet, Megan had already been sent away. He specifically apologized to me. Rebecca, I'm sorry. I didn't know that Megan would come and disrupt your birthday party. Don't take what she said to heart. It was still my fault for not handling this matter well. Of course it's your fault, I said indifferently. You didn't give your girlfriend enough sense of security when you were in a relationship. And you shouldn't have made random promises to her if you weren't ready for marriage. You often talked to me during the early days of your relationship. Didn't you notice that I was already avoiding suspicion with you at that time? Over the years, of course, I still had some resentment. She targeted me later, and it wasn't without your reason. After thinking about it, I added, but you can still come to me if you have any problems in the future. As your elders, Cyrus and I should help you. Dylan was left speechless. When I was 24 years old, I married Cyrus. The wedding was prepared for a long time and was grand and dazzling. My best friend caught my bouquet. She smiled and asked if the bouquet could bring good luck in making money. I said there was a diamond necklace in it. She was pleasantly surprised and found it out. The people who didn't catch the bouquet looked regretful. In the bridal chamber at night, I took off the cumbersome jewelry one by one, removed my makeup, and went to wash up. When I came out, I saw Cyrus standing on the balcony looking at the scenery. I went over and hugged him from behind. What are you looking at? Cyrus lowered his head and held my hand, chuckling. I just answered a phone call for you. It was from Dylan. Do you want to hear what he said? There was a bit of a dangerous implication in this sentence. I tugged at the belt of his bathrobe and said, it probably isn't anything important. It's our wedding night. Why bother with other people? He let me pull his belt as we entered the bridal chamber. His dark eyes followed and landed on me. He touched my face and said, you're right. Why care about others? Fleeting kisses fell. Later, amidst the ups and downs, I squinted my eyes. The dim warm light at the head of the bed illuminated Cyrus's jawline. Without thinking, I reached out and stroked his Adam's apple. Feeling his warmth, Cyrus noticed and lowered his head to kiss me. On this wedding night, such a beautiful moment should not be wasted. Just before falling asleep, I heard Cyrus whisper in my ear, Rebecca, I love you. I reached out and hugged him back. With a hint of sleepiness, I said to him, I love you too. Extra chapter, from Cyrus's perspective. When I was 5 years old, my elder brother and sister-in-law had a son. The Lee family, who were on good terms with my family, had a daughter. My parents took me to the hospital to visit the new mother and the newborn baby. Rebecca was a chubby little thing back then, looking so pink and tender. When she and Dylan were young, they both liked to stick to me. Dylan is my nephew. I tolerated his naughtiness because an elder should have the tolerance. Rebecca wasn't naughty. She was just lively and cute. As the years went by, I had more and more things to take care of. Of course, Rebecca also grew up and became a graceful young lady. I watched her and Dylan being innocent and carefree with each other. My sister-in-law would always look at her kindly and say that it would be great if she could become her daughter-in-law. Everyone thought so, including my parents, and later, Rebecca herself. I naturally felt a bit of resentment. For example, she used to be very attached to me, but later she was a bit afraid of me. Clearly, I'm older, but the family only thought of Dylan as her childhood sweetheart. When I was 2, but I had no chance to compete because Rebecca didn't choose me either. She firmly chose Dylan, so I took back my feelings. Until the year Dylan turned 20. He called me and said, Uncle, I met a girl I like at school. and I don't know what to do. He had fallen for someone other than Rebecca. Dylan also knew that there was an agreement between our two families. That night, I said a selfish sentence. The engagement between you and Rebecca was just something our elders talked about verbally and wasn't formalized. You can handle it as you see fit. I didn't know what Dylan would do. Until a month later, he happily announced his first girlfriend, and I bought a plane ticket back home that very night. I understood that not all opportunities would wait in the same place. Fortunately, I seized the opportunity. On the night of my wedding with Rebecca, I answered a call from Dylan for her. Dylan was drunk that day. As soon as the call was connected, he said, "Rebecca, do you think if we had gotten engaged when we were 18, what would have happened now?" Ever since Dylan met that other girl a few years ago, I knew he would regret it. But it was too late for him to regret. I said, "Dylan, don't call your aunt so late in the future. If you have something, you can come to me." There was a long silence on the other end. Then I heard Dylan say, "Uncle, I hate you." After saying that, he hung up the phone. So what if he hates me? I didn't steal his girlfriend. I chased after my wife myself. And I'm Rebecca's first love. He was just a childhood playmate at most. The end.